Welcome to the third webinar of the online course Healing Biotopes Plan. I wait for a sign of my colleagues that everything is running. Is it right? Great. So, here we are again with a bigger circle of people. And actually we are approaching already the end of the course. So on Sunday we will have our last webinar. And we have a lot of questions around the issue of healing sex, love and partnership. So I will just start with a presentation of you and then go directly to the questions so that we can use as much time as possible. And I want to thank these great people with us today. And we have with us Barbara Kovac, we call her also Bori. And she's one of what we call our wise woman in the community. She's a pole and a reference in the community and also for all the visitors and students that come here. She's part of our Tamera Woman Council. I think we spoke already a bit with Saskia about it. So this is like an institution where most of the social issues are addressed. And one of the institutions that work more like for the longer time in Tamera, I think. Yes, and she's also the coordinator of the solar test field, and this is the department that research with energy and technology in Tamera. She's one of the figures that leads forum spaces, and as you can see, she loves animals. Yes, thank you for being here. Martin Winiecki, I already presented him last week, but in case someone just joined us, he is the leader of the Institute for Global Peace Work, where we are sitting, and also you can see the building we are sitting in this beautiful picture from Dieterdum. And he's a networker. He's also like the mother of our Defend the Sacred Gatherings and a writer. Also part of the government that gives direction to Tamera and more. We keep it like this. And Dara Silverman is, like we have here, the one that is for the longest in the project. Martin is, I don't know, 12 years here. And Dara is the youngest,
7.
So to say, 7. And she is the youngest Tamarian. She is a member of the Love School. She is in education to become a group leader. I think some of our students have been already together with her. And she is also in education with Bori as a forum leader for our students and visitors, and I would say she is a compassionate and erotic and political heart in the community. Yes. So, thank you. And to go directly to the first lesson, I took a quote from our study material that says something like, the healing of love between the genders is not limited to the relationship between the genders. It also includes a new relationship to nature, cooperation with all creatures, the healing of water, and a loving relationship with animals. We need a reintegration of our human world in the overall world of life to heal our primal pain of separation. Yes, and with this quote I take the first question, the first two questions. We have so many questions around this issue that I put them, most of them together. So the first two questions are one from Hanin, asking, healing sex, love and partnership. How can it be healed? How can this point of fear of the pain of love be different? And also in this sense, Michael asked, for me the sentence jealousy doesn't belong to love is the hardest to manifest at the moment. How do you overcome jealousy? How to get rid of the fear of losing your beloved? Yes. So this is an introduction to the issue. Who wants to start? Lara, you want to start?
I can try. So, I mean, the first thought that comes actually with Hanin's question is that actually very often we associate something with love which is not actually love. You know, that actually one needs to suffer and then there is love. I mean, it's similar with the jealousy question, like I mean how it's portrayed so often in media, in movies, and all of this is like the more jealous you are, the more it's a proof for love. And actually love as a state of being is such a high power where pain actually doesn't fit into this. And now this is then another level of how to do it in terms of relationship and what happens there when we face pain points. But to know that this healing power, this big healing power of love, is never directly connected with pain. Maybe just as a first thought, and you add.
Maybe I start with the question of Hanin once more. And she describes something that seems normal to us, and that is also somehow normal, that if you start to open your heart, you are confronted with the beauty of the world and you are confronted with the pain of the world, both of it at the same time. You cannot open your heart only open the right half of it and not it's a whole. And if you start to love, you start to be compassionate, you start to see that there is suffering, you start to see that there is beauty. You see both. You see the suffering and you see also the beauty and the power of healing, of the power of love. You also start to see it. And the question then how to not go. The question then is more, what do I need or what do we need not to follow the pain patterns? In German there is this word, der Katastrophenhimmel, not the heaven of catastrophe, but that you dare to follow heaven of abundance, heaven of happiness, without getting polite and shallow, with it all its powers. And there I think in this decision, this is a navigation of becoming conscious, because very often we don't know of what heaven we are, by what heaven we are steered. We think we are loving, but we are steered by our heaven of catastrophe.
By the heaven of Hollywood.
And then you start to say, do you still love me? Do you still love me? And you don't feel how much you are steered by your fear of not being loved, and by being steered by your fear of not being loved, you repel the other, because the unconscious patterns will cause what you subconsciously act upon. So it is a school of becoming self-aware, of becoming also knowing that there is, that there are both heavens. There is also an adult person in our time doesn't believe anymore in the heaven of love. It is naive, it is forget about it, it never worked. So it needs a different pride to say, yes, I believe in the heaven of love. And I know why. There is a positive picture of the world, and this I want to train, and there then I start to meet people that also want to train this. There then I need a community that supports me on this path, studies with me. Why actually is it really true that there is a heaven of love? It is really true. When I look around, there is no outer proof. Sometimes there are outer proofs. Sometimes, when I just now look at the little one here, how traumatized she came and how relaxed she is now, this is a proof of that healing powers work. Yeah. So maybe just to give it the frame.
Martin, you just made a comment about the Hollywood movies. Maybe you want to add something in this direction also?
Yeah, I mean, to answer this question, I think it's so important to understand how much we are conditioned by the stories and the mythologies, if you will, of the dominant culture that we are part of. And I mean, just to make a very kind of blatant statement, love is not possible under capitalism, because we, in a way, I mean, of course, it's there are a lot of couples that try their best and go very far, but we are social beings, and so we always, how far we come also always depends to a large extent, actually to a larger extent than we think in this individualistic thinking, on the culture that we are part of. And I mean, capitalism has really invaded people's lives to a point that also in our most intimate realms we think about commodity, we think about possession, we are, and those are relations of fear and scarcity thinking. And so I think it is also important to see how much the difficulties that we face individually in these areas are the result of the structure of a culture that is just not oriented towards community and values like mutual support and solidarity and cooperation, but really very egoistic, competitive, fear-driven structures. And so people are so much in this matrix that we forget that there is another pattern of life outside of that. And also people, humanity, we lived for 98% of our history outside of those structures. We lived in community, and this is, if we have to connect to this, to another stream in the structure of the world and also of our own history, to sense of where there could be a way also for us personally.
Great.
Just in addition to what was said.
I would like to add some one thought line only to the second question also, because as, let's say, personal, this question seems to be as deep it is also, because whether we overcome the fear of loss of our beloved or not as humanity, this is like turning the key. And he asks also, how can I overcome this fear of loss? And maybe
he asked, how do you overcome?
Okay.
The jealousy.
Yeah.
No, the fear of loss.
Also, jealousy and the fear of losing your beloved.
Yeah. And fear, I quote the fear of loss because it is the core or it's behind jealousy. No,
Mhm. Yeah.
jealousy occurs because of this fear.
Mhm.
And there are two levels I think one can answer this question. One is, it is also a question that one can proudly love.
Mm.
Because it is the core question. It is when you can feel this fear within you, you know, I'm near the traumatic layer of all of humanity, because we, as you said, we are in a system where separation and therefore fear of loss is the normal state.
Mhm.
And with this I also say how to overcome it by training to be in connectedness. And one of the very basic trainings to connect is being in community.
Mm.
And when you then say being in community, this means to be able to speak the truth, to be able to build trust. So the tricky thing of this question is that you sort of cannot solve it alone. So you need to re-embed yourself into something bigger.
Mm.
And when there is no community around, very often nature helps.
Mhm.
I think everybody of us knows how much it can help if you make a real conscious walk in the forest,
Mm.
or when you are consciously together with animals, that your heart can calm down and you find the place where you can again think rationally.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
we cannot think rationally when we are in this fear-driven space.
Mm.
No, there is this beautiful sentence: fear is never a good Ratgeber, advisor for decisions or for actions to take.
Mm. Thank you. Now I was reminded again, it's funny. There was a couple of days ago a video in Facebook again where it says something like, if you really know what it means, unconditional love, if you are loving to every different race and different people, if you are happy every day with the meal you get, even if it's the same that every day, if you don't have so much judgments and so on, like there is a very long description of someone you think at the end of the line it will be someone illuminated.
Mm-hmm.
At the end it says, if you reach all these levels, then you are in the same level as your dog. Yes, because they are really great masters of unconditional love.
No, this is true.
So, thank you for these answers. And we continue with getting a bit more concrete. Fiske asked, to what extent are issues between partners discussed in a group setting? Can you give typical examples of what is dealt with between partners and what is discussed with a larger group? I think for people to get an idea how we work with these issues. And a second question related to it from Elizabeth. Can you explain a bit about how you create vessels and healing spaces for sharing and coming out with the truth about sex, love, partnership, and share about your experiences with forum, talking circles, sisterhood, brotherhood, woman and men circles, etc. Yeah, like a bit more the tools and the spaces we use, and maybe also some examples. And just for that our students know, we have with us a marriage couple. How do you say?
A married couple.
Yes, married couple.
No.
Martin,
Why not?
Jackie, and Lara. So maybe they also can give some orientation. Yeah.
mean, I think that, you know, very often people think, or we're conditioned to think, that intimacy happens in this one-on-one, in a closed room, where then you're safe, right? And I mean, what we discover ever more is that, especially in the places where it's hot, especially in the places where you think, oof, if I say this in front of a group of people, I start to tremble. These are exactly the places that friends or a wider circle can be really helpful. You know, I mean, I don't know, I mean, we could speak now about, like, I could go into the structures that we use, but, and maybe I do, no? I don't know how you've had it with forum, if it's a known term.
Yeah, we did go into it a little bit already.
Yeah.
You can speak about it again, because it's a very unknown setting for people.
Yeah, it's in a way an art form, or a tool that we use on a very regular basis, where a group of people regularly come together, and there's a help, like there's somebody that holds it and somebody that assists this forum's leader, and a circle of people that bear witness and also then reflect what they see. And one goes into the middle and reveals something that you wouldn't normally just say over the dinner table, you know, something that you need to make transparent. And we often refer to this great sentence, to be seen is to be loved. And there you realize more and more that this, what you think you need to keep private to build intimacy, actually is more or less the same in almost everybody. And there a certain baseline of solidarity grows, where you can see yourself in the others, and where you can reflect what normally we have as blind spots, because we're so much in our own line. Yeah, and so then, I mean for sure, we also, I mean, Martin and I for sure have a lot of one-on-one time where we are just the two of us, but where it gets hot, this is always the place to then bring it into a wider circle, be it forum or a group of friends, or to then say, hey Bori, I need to talk, or you know, sometimes I also have it where I also can imagine somebody like a Bori in the space if things get hot, where it's a woman that I respect, and I know that I will speak differently if I imagine she's there than if I imagine we're just alone. And this, so, but I mean, the main line is to really invite ever more publicity.
Good. I'm sure they want to add some things.
I can pick up a line. When Dara said that you discover yourself in the people that speak in the forum, it is also it becomes an experience that your issue is not your private issue. Your issue is a structural issue that everybody carries in this way or in another way. Jealousy, fear of loss, we just had competition, many things. And I think by discovering the Allgemeingültigkeit,
The generalizability.
by discovering that your issue is a general issue, you have a different way to act upon it, because then you also know, okay, when I now discover something, how I can, what is the root of it, how I can change the chain where I'm then always in the same trap. When I then share this, I know that I share it for all of the people sitting in the circle, and I also know I share it for the bigger consciousness that we are all part of. And the more I come to the core values of human life, the more I can dive into the core points the more it is relevant for the whole body of humanity, I can say.
Mm.
Mm.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I think
How do we deal with things? No, is the main question.
they ask if you can give typical examples, like what kind of issues between partners we discuss in a larger group. Yeah, so that they have an idea, okay, what are these people speaking about? I normally deal with my partner, how do they do it? Yeah.
I don't get an example now in my head,
Mm-hmm.
but what I know, what sharing publicly often changes is that you don't stay in the dialogue of a ping pong. When you speak in public, you start to speak about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So a forum is also the space where you don't stand up and say, but you did yesterday this and that, and this is why I today am allowed to do that and that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an underlying ping pong structure. When you are on the two of you, very often you're trapped in this attack, defense. I'm right, you're right. No, you're not right. I attack you. This is the little war now going on. And when you can then go, keep it.
Yeah.
When you then can go and say, listen, this is what happened. I was touched on a point that I was so afraid I started to attack. And when then the other can hear, he or she can see your process with your inner work, and doesn't have then to react personally, because it is not a personal thing that is between the two of them. It is. Yeah, the issues are bigger than the two people.
Yeah, and on that level, it is not couple therapy that we do, but it's actually work on building community, like creating ever more consciousness and also intimacy in a group by including the issues instead of taking them out and dealing them among two. And I mean, I also feel like that it's important to say, even though it might be a bit difficult to understand it, but that the whole work on communication and community building and sharing and processing and all of that, it rests on the foundation of a different sexual culture. Because it's because the underlying basis of couples coming together, also the two of us coming together, has been a culture of free sexuality, meaning that we create a vessel of community and trust in which people can truly articulate their truth in sexuality, where also this is not privately handled, and where we kind of take away the unnecessary restrictions to sexuality that have been imposed by a patriarchal culture of oppression. And this also leads to a different way of how couples come together in the first place. It is because so much of couples coming together is based on erotic projection and not yet on the coming together of souls. But the experience is that when you can be in a community where you can follow the truth in sexuality, then you get to know people differently, and also the couples can then come together on the level of truly being connected on a soul level, or sharing an issue that they work together on that connects them, where it's not only the sexual foundation. Because if it's only based on sex, then the sexual high voltage lighting up with somebody else logically is a threat to that relationship. And so that is, I feel it's important also to add that, because it makes a big difference in how we define couples and also live partnership.
Great.
I have an example.
Great. I was thinking if she don't, I will too. I will have to. So please.
Yeah, one example. If in a partnership, one of the partners stands up in a circle and describes his or her attraction to a third one publicly and is allowed to fully express it without holding back because he or she might be offended by me speaking, you know, I just experienced this sweet, deep, interesting, curious contact. And when the person in the middle is allowed to share this fully, then the partner has a different possibility to look at his partner or her partner and see, this is what he loves. Wow. So you react with curiosity and not with fear.
And this is also a very important step for overcoming jealousy.
Yeah.
What was the question before?
Yeah.
Because the more you get to know and can say yes to the sexual nature of your partner, the more the jealousy will vanish.
And there I feel you can also feel the difference, what it means when I sit in front of my partner and tell him or her, listen, this is what I experience, and just by being only the two of us and me by being directed towards him, I will start to calculate innerly. I will not tell him that I love that he has this and that, because I know this will meet his wound points, and I don't want to, and then he feels she is not telling me the truth. And then you have the fear system going, and then jealousy, fear of loss, all this happens, you know? Yeah.
Great, that was now a good example. Yeah. So we continue with another question. From
shadow. Okay.
Signe. She says, there are people who consciously choose to be in a monogamous relationship. I believe that being open about one's desire and sexual impulses toward other men or women is more important than always acting on them. Being allowed to feel these desires and be honest about them already gives freedom. Are there also monogamous couples in Tamera? And how do they fit into the overall frame? Very good question. And I put it together with a question from Hanin that asks how to express these energies, sex, love, attractions, with awareness without suppressing them. And if we cannot express them, how come it is not suppression? So both are on the same line, like, do we always have to act on the sexual attractions, or and how do monogamous couples fit in Tamera? Yeah.
So I start, yeah?
Yeah.
To take one line. Monogamy fits in the culture of free love. So this is statement number one. And it fits into a culture of free love and free sexuality as long as monogamy is really a truly freely chosen way of connecting with each other. And it is very often a phase that couples go through with the wish to deepen their contact to deepen their contact. And there are monogamous couples in Tamera, and I think the only thing a monogamous couple has to be aware of is that you will get questions, and you will get the expression of attraction of others, and you will be challenged to answer honestly. It's somehow also often a misunderstanding of the concept of free love. When you think of free love, free love is only free when you change partners all the time, then you have a wrong picture of free love. So monogamy is part of free love. Celibacy can be part, can be a phase, can be a decision, can be part, can be free, a path of free love. Sometimes we need to really say, no, this is now not my issue. I need first to develop something in my brain or in my heart, or I need to work now because this is my urge. Yes. And the question about whether we need to act upon it or not, this is a tricky one. I don't think we can answer this via email or internet or so, because it's a question of truth. If you don't act because you are afraid of causing troubles, then you are in the trap of fear. And if you don't act because you made your decision that you want to be monogamous and you now say no to this attraction, then you are probably on the path of your power and of your decision. So this is really, at least this is how I think. And the question of Hanine, there is a whole, because I know her path a little bit, I know that there is a huge cultural background behind this question. Yeah, I don't know how to answer this now on this level. Because she asks whether it is suppression when we don't act it out. And I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
I can imagine that there are decisions you make in your life where when you don't act out a thing, you don't suppress it, but you consciously decide, no, this is now not the path I take. Because I made an ethical decision that tells me the other way around. When I decided to go vegan, or let's say vegan, and I still eat sometimes cheese, then this is, then I know that I don't follow my decision, but if I would not eat cheese, I would not suppress anything. I don't suppress my wish for eating meat, for instance. It is my decision not to do so. And when I doubt my decision, I recall why I made this decision, and then I have again a stable ground. And there are places in your life where you make a decision not to act on your sexual attraction because there is a thought line to it. And many words.
Yeah, but thank you. That was now really good. Also knowing also the path of Hanine, and it's also very related to the first question. Like there is not a recipe. That's why we need community to know, to get to know where are the persons on their path and so on. But Martin still has something in his mind.
Yeah, I mean sometimes actually you cannot. Actually, it's not wise to act out an impulse. Also to say that, like, and this also has to do with. I mean, you went into the what is free love and what isn't, and I mean, free love is a way of life in which we serve a culture of trust, and there are many situations where attraction happens in social structures where actually it will create more fear or more separation if we just open the gates of sexual energy, and also to say that, so it also has this. I think if we follow the question what serves trust, then we have a good compass.
This is good, because we always need to also remind each other on the ethical base of free sexuality. We sometimes no, not sometimes, but we have ethical guidelines, and one of them, for instance, is, and this is exactly what serves trust and what does not, one of them is, if you know that the person you want to sexually engage with is in a partnership, and you know that the other partner doesn't know about it or wouldn't agree, or that when there is no possibility for transparency, then it is for the sake of trust that you don't act in this moment. And then call it suppression or not, but then this not acting or suppressing, or Freud would have said, wie heißt das da? Sublimieren. Sublimation. It is for a path where sex, love, and all these inner forces can go and pour themselves into a vessel of truth and trust and beauty, and not chaos and war.
Thank you. That was really good ending words. Great. Then I go for a next question from Darcy. She says, in moving towards a post-patriarchal culture, what is the work of the different genders? What work must men do with each other? What work must women do with women, and women and men do together? And how is your work evolving with increased awareness of gender non-binary people? How does a third gender perspective change the conversation?
Yes.
Who wants to start? Before you start, maybe I say, I printed here from one of our students, Daniel, from my group. We have two groups, and he tells such a deep story and a deep reflection on his way of understanding how patriarchy influences his whole life, how he then choose to don't identify with the men because it was too much violence what he projected there, how then he decided to choose a queer path, and at one point how he discovered actually the curiosity about the woman and what does it mean to have a positive picture of manhood. And I will put it in the platform so that people from the other group can also study it, and I would like also some people from the community to read it because it's very deep going in this line. Yeah. So I want to thank publicly Daniel for sharing so deeply his story and reflections. Yeah.
Okay, so it was quite some questions now. Like, what is the work with women among women, men among men, and what is the role of a third gender or non-dualistic gender identities? Maybe I start with the last one. Because I mean, or no, I started with the first. I mean, a lot of our work is about looking beyond the past of patriarchy that we come from, that we are still in the midst of, which has a very cruel history attached to it. And they're also saying that we don't want to then return to a matriarchal culture where it was this power over that power, but to find out what it means to create a culture of partnership, right? Where men and women can really support one another and look together into a future perspective towards healing. And now this is it's tricky now because there's so much suppression of the woman in history that actually it needs quite a radical step for the woman to come into her power and find out what that actually means. You know, like, who am I as a woman if I don't just compare myself to a man? If I don't think now I'm liberated because I think like a man or I speak like a man or right?
Fight like a man.
Yeah, but who am I as a woman? What kind of women role models do I have? And also for men to, I mean, Martin could speak to this rather, but for men also, who is the new man that doesn't need to suppress the woman any longer? And how can we really support one another? And there, I think women's solidarity and men's solidarity together is very important there. Yeah, and that said, I mean, I think ever more there's so much to learn from the queer community, and in what this means to not identify actually, or not to stick to identifications and pain points of the past, but to have this navigation of, okay, this is the feminine aspect and this is the masculine aspect, and they also need to come together within myself. Right? I'm still working out an answer. Maybe somebody else has something until I come to the clear line.
For me, it will be interesting how the queer community is an example. Maybe you take it and we continue with the answer.
I can answer if you in advance forgive me that I may use cliches.
Yes.
And that, yeah. Every woman or every human being comes out of a woman. And this is a very specific place that a woman holds in the universe, whether she is current mother or not. So my issue as a woman is also to be this universal mother for life. And culturally, I was not taught how to be this. I was rather taught how to make myself smaller than man, how to be a little daughter, a little innocent, a little blonde, a little not knowing, so that everybody can explain to me life and nobody is really threatened by my appearance. And I think we women can support each other by telling each other how we return to source, to this utterly nourishing place where we are beyond fears and where we dare again to speak for our heart, for our compassion for the planet, for the children, for the world, for everything. And in the relationship with man, it is also this that I can give as a healing hand to the man, that I am this mother and I'm not disappointed when for a phase the man that I wanted to be the strong man in my life and the big shoulder that I can lean on, that he becomes the boy, the insecure, shaking person, and I'm there and I know that nevertheless he is a big being, and I will not start to blame him that he at the moment is not there in his power, because I know when he can grow up to a real powerful man, I will have the powerful partner I want. So this is for me one thing that, of course, women will never ever do alone, because they also need men that are on the same, let's say, that support this level of consciousness. But this is where we can support each other, I feel, by encouraging each other to see ourselves like this in the community and in the world. Yes, and about man, I say one thing and I give hand over. For me, what I can observe, especially when I am in groups that are rather new, in Tamera, I can see that men in these days, they are so much aware that it was the male energy that destroyed the planet so far, also in history, that they don't know how to relate to their male strength. So they are polite, they make themselves small, they ask 1,000 times the same question in order not to trap into the path where they have fear that when they grow strong, they will again start to violate. So to help this, to develop this picture where a man is strong and caring for this planet. So this man where every woman's heart just makes like ping, yes, this I like, this I love, to support this. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is actually, it's a good starting point for this work with, or work for men, and also what you said before about the phase that a man goes through when he is the son, and through the acceptance of a woman can kind of develop his authentic strength, which is not based on the harsh armor, but actually the serving power that comes is the natural consequence, so to speak, of the acceptance that he experiences. And so in that sense, this as a man, to encounter women who know about this process of man, and who have, because they have the empathy and because they don't want to bind me immediately as a partner, this is very important for a man to develop. And it's also important for men to get together and to, actually discover how much we need each other as men. Because in the patriarchal picture, we are loners and competitors. Looking for realizing ourselves, doing our thing, get the partners and sexual contacts for us. And there is something where then the empathy to the side of the woman also leads to an insight where we see we need to work together to support women so that they can grow into exactly that position where they can unfold the role that they need to unfold for the healing in this moment. So this is a societal task in a way, where men have to support each other so that they can really in a way give the women acceptance in a place where acceptance was hardly possible in this patriarchal time, and also where a single man is not alone to give it after such a long history of so many experiences. So, and I want to say also something about the queer topic, because about the role of a third gender, because I find it very telling that for many indigenous cultures, actually it was natural to include more than two genders. And many indigenous cultures were really based on this worldview of like creating a community, a culture where the balance between the masculine and the feminine is kept. This is in the core of many indigenous cultures. And in that sense, where also it is important that men and women really come together. And still, there was the consciousness that there are other people who actually don't fit into this polarity and who at the same time hold a very important role for exactly that polarity. So it is not either or. It is not either man and woman or this dissolution into an indistinguishable group of ever more sexual identities. But so for me, this is I find very interesting, and I think it is also telling that the queer movement is becoming such a power now in the Western world, because it is kind of the historic reaction, I feel, to a time where sexuality was so much defined by oppressive stereotypes that it is kind of the natural consequence that we need to deconstruct and break out of those roles in order to understand again who we are and to let go of the identifications that we were pressed into but that are actually not serving life. And so I also think that going through that is so important, also then to come back to say, no, I am actually a cisgendered, predominantly heterosexual man, but I think it is important to see that the kind of the way how we have been pressed into sexual identities is so based on neurotic structures, and this this I feel is the gift that comes out of the queer movement.
Okay. So now we have the question with the time, because we have a couple of minutes and still I have a lot of questions, and at least I want to make 2 of them, so maybe we stretch a bit, if it's okay for you. One I want to give in, because it says like this, from Justin and also Julia asking this direction. If we are starting with a small group of interested people outside of Tamera, before we establish an actual biotope, like if we are starting to make study groups and so on, how can we approach this subject in a way that would lead towards understanding and acceptance rather than rejections, since patriarchy is so baked in to the modern Western mindset?
What is baked in?
So
Installed.
inherent, rooted in.
And I want to take this question because all the students will have to face it somehow. Like, do we include this issue? How? Yeah. So.
My main answer is study. Study before you go into experience. And it is a very sincere answer, because I think we all know how strong the energies are that we deal with when we speak about sexuality and love. And when we then, being in a strong stream of sexual energy, when you then don't have this real strong also knowledge where you know this I can hold on, you will be like, and then you will be swept away. So to understand and also give yourself the time and your soul the time to ask yourself the question, how do I want to lead my life in these basic energies of life? Sexuality, love, religion, connecting, let's say these. What is the pattern that I want to serve? Whom do I want to serve? And making friends about this question. And then I know, okay, now I have my security net in my brain and around myself, in people, and only then I go into experience. And this is in a experience fixed society, and also in a short-term, fulfilling, fixed society, a very difficult answer. But I think we need to take it.
It's definitely more sustainable that way.
Yeah, that's
Great. Thank you. I think we leave it like this with this lesson, and I want at least to put one question from the other lesson that goes in the direction of the research about how our personal suffering is a result of collective trauma. Is there a way out? And we already approached the issue several times now, and still I want to take at least one question from Jenny saying, can you give an example of how Tamera approaches an individual's healing in a community effort? How does community engage in healing the individual? What practices does Tamera do to help an individual regaining lost power? So that we have this answer.
It's clear. It's a very clear question. I start. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The first step is, if you live in a more or less healthy community, there are things that heal only by the fact that you live in a community. By getting the mirrors, by getting a nice hello in the morning, so that you realize, whoa, I'm not alone on this planet, and there are actually communication possibilities, contact possibilities, and by people saying to you, I cannot read your face, what do you think? Everything okay? So that you get to know that you have an influence. Just by this very, very simple truth around you, people start to heal. Then what we mentioned is the forum. By getting honest feedback, and also by being mirrored on your higher level, not by being mirrored only on your mistakes, but by being told who you are. In fact, also by asking the question, why are you on this planet? What is the purpose in your life? So by helping each other to stay with those big questions and not with the little questions. Why didn't you greet me this morning? And then the more we know each other, then we can then identify specific areas of difficulty that a person has in life, and there you then can very specifically start to shed light. I think the main thing is shed light in areas, so that consciousness can look into it. Yeah, very brief answer.
It's enough, I think.
I would like to hear like more concrete things, like because she asked what practices does Tamera do to help someone to regain power.
I would say also.
No, go.
Yeah. I mean, how Bori answered the last question about studying. This is so much a practice that we do here, where actually it could be an answer to almost all of the questions you asked is study, because there's so much to the power of thought actually, where you know, like to the question of jealousy, or to the question of repression, or to the question of personal healing, to put a thought first so often helps to be able to think instead of just following an emotional spiral that brings you down or makes you react when you actually don't want. And so studying in this way also to recognize again, like this is not my private healing issue, but I do this because it is a sickness that is planetary, right? And when I find answers for it, it also supports on a planetary level. And so, like, I mean, also the forums work is a lot about not identifying with the problem and with the but being able to see it and still having one foot outside of it to observe it, and therefore being able to give it steering direction in a healthy direction. And this has a lot to do with then community to support and also give orientation.
And I think one important thing is also that we water commonly a common goal. That when I can fully connect with a goal, I have different possibilities of power within myself in order to put aside or to say this is now not important, and also focus my own thoughts on the positive side, to speak with Peace Pilgrim. Constantly through thought you create the inner conditions and help to create the conditions around you. So keep your thoughts on the positive side, she then says. Think about the best that can happen. Think about the good things you want to happen. Think about God.
Thank you. Martin, you want to still add something? No. Great. I think these were the final words. So thank you very much. And yes, I think we just give you thanks for being here with us, and the rest of questions that were not answered will find an answer by the facilitators, or you will get universal answers from life itself. So thank you very much, and we see each other again on Sunday. Very extraordinary meeting point. Thank you and bye.
Ciao. Ciao.